Happy Thanksgiving Eve, everybody. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It is Wednesday, November 27th, 2019, and we've got your top headlines, trending topics, and what we're working on for you right now ahead of our 6 p.m. What Matters Most, 7 p.m. Front Row, and 11 p.m. What's Next TV shows. Today we're going to be talking about tonight's giveaway at the Cleveland Cavaliers game. Give you a little sneak peek of what you can get if you're heading to the game tonight. That's in honor of Nick Miletti, the original owner of the team. We're also going to take a look at a viral tweet that offers you free advice from people who have been to therapy. So if you haven't gone, you can get some free advice, and if you have gone, you can see how your experience compares with that of other people in the online world. And then we're also going to talk with Drew Horansky, the senior reporter behind the Amy Should Be 40 podcast, as we're highlighting episode 3 of that 5-part series today, just a couple of weeks ahead of what would have been Amy Mihaljevic's birthday. Now, she was murdered 30 years ago, and we'll get into all of that with Drew in a little bit. And then we're going to let you know about a way that you can stay safe all weekend, but especially tonight if you live in Summit County, the Arrive Alive campaign. All right. Tonight's giveaway at the Cleveland Cavaliers game in honor of Nick Miletti is this throwback hat. He was the original owner of the team. We can thank Nick Miletti for bringing us the team in 1970. He had the team from 1970 to 1980, and this Nick Miletti Cavalier hat giveaway presented by Medical Mutual is what you'll get tonight if you go to the game, which is against the Orlando Magic. Tip-off is at 7 p.m. tonight at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse here in Cleveland. Miletti, who is 88 right now, was inducted into the Cavs Wall of Honor this month, so you can also check that out if you make it out to the game. And that is what you can get if you head to the game tonight. You can see it has the original logo from 1970 to 1974 for the Cavs. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at a viral tweet today from Brooklyn author Caroline Moss. So this tweet already has more than 45,000 likes and more than 9,000 retweets. What she tweeted was, if you go to therapy, quote tweet this with the best thing you learned at therapy. That way everyone else can get free therapy. And I will tell you, Caroline Moss, thank you for tweeting this tweet, because what I have to say is that what I have learned is that you cannot have too much therapy. I think it's a great resource for people. I think we can never be too focused on our mental, emotional health. And the responses that elicited from that tweet covered everything from self-care to anxiety, ways to manage confrontation, a whole list of things. A couple of the highlights that stood out to me when I took a look at the thread. One Twitter user who identified as Jill wrote, "If you can imagine the worst thing, you can imagine the best thing. Both things are imaginary. Say out loud verbally the positive outcome. Repeat until it feels more real." That's a good sort of reminder to just kind of get out of our heads if that's sort of the space that we're living in. And then Twitter user Sputnik1 says that she learned that society doesn't need to be the one to set her schedule. I am with you on that, Sputnik1, and that she can eat breakfast at 11 and go to bed at 1 a.m., and that's totally fine. And I really wish that I had that schedule too, let me just tell you. Now, if you happen to suffer from anxiety, which a lot of us do, Twitter user KB shared what she learned about coping with anxiety and how to get all 5 senses involved to get yourself calm again. KB tweeted, quote, "Count 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste." And that's a tactic to sort of refocus your mind away from the thing that's causing you anxiety and on something else, the things in your immediate surroundings. Now, if you're worried about confrontation, which many of us might be as we head into the holidays, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, we might be meeting up with family members that we don't see often, that we maybe disagree with on certain things, maybe on politics. That's one hot button issue that always seems to come up around the holidays. Dominic Menendez shared a reminder that confrontation doesn't need to be a bad thing or lead to an argument. Dominic said, if you're having trouble talking about a problem, try writing down a bullet list of the issues, why it's an issue, where it stems from for you, and what can be done to fix it. These are all really great tips. The thread is full of tons of great tips, but it is important to note that this is all secondhand advice, right? So these people have gone to therapy if they follow the directions from Caroline Moss and aren't just giving you advice from their personal lives. We're assuming that this is actual advice that they've received from mental health professionals. But there is no substitute for talking to your own mental health provider. It's always a good time to check in on your mental and emotional health. This is just a reminder, and lots of useful tips. If you'd like to take a look at them, that story is on WKYC.com, so you can go directly to the thread from that story. All right, now we're going to be talking with Drew Horansky, the senior reporter behind the Amy Should Be 40 podcast. We have a story up on WKYC.com highlighting episode 3 of that series. It's a 5-part series. Drew, thank you for joining us.
Of course, thank you, Stephanie. And of course, we're doing this every week up until Amy's birthday, which would be December 11th of this year. And so this is the 3rd podcast that we produced. This one's name is a little bit cheeky. It's called Besties, which of course is a term that is used for friends. And the person who kicks off this week is Kristy Sabo, who is Amy Mihaljevic's childhood friend. This was a friend that I think a lot of people can relate to. They met, I believe she said, in the 2nd grade. It was the first friend Kristy had a sleepover with, and she and Amy got to be very close growing up. And Kristy just wonders what their friendship would be like today, what Amy would be like today, and then takes us back to her mind as a little girl at the time of Amy's disappearance and how things changed, not just in her life, but her relationship with Amy's mother, what it was like going back to Amy's house after her friend had gone missing, and what it's like today as a parent, which really is the most relatable part, I think, about this for us, is those of us who grew up during this time now, are using this as a lesson today. Kristy certainly does with her children, I do with mine, and we dive a little bit into how this has changed her view as a mother and as somebody who has gone through something very traumatic.
Well, and as we've said before, Drew, this investigation is very much a live investigation. Right. What kind of a sense did you get? Did you get a sense of Kristy's state of mind, of how she's feeling about the uncertainty, if she's in a state of acceptance, denial?
I think she always goes back to being that little girl when she thinks about this. It's still painful for her. She talks about how she goes to a river in Bay Village to reflect, to pray, to think about her friend. It's almost, I think her coping mechanism is almost a spiritual one when she thinks about it. I don't think she has closure like so many people do, hoping that there are answers to this at some point. And one of the things we talk about, I think, as parents, and even if we put ourselves back there as kids, how does this happen? How does a person who is told to be weary of strangers, a person who had an officer visit them at their school that day and warn them about strangers, who, as her father tells us in this podcast, even gave a code word that a stranger should use for Amy to go with that adult. How does a person like this go into a car? And so we talk about that a little bit, and we even do a little bit of testing where this was done by our sister station in Charlotte, where a group of parents are inside with kids who've been told about stranger danger, and it's staged with police actually participating in this investigation too, by actors who tried to lure kids into their cars. And you will be surprised at what those kids do knowing better. You can't say that your child would never do this, or you would have never done that until you at least listen to this part of our podcast and see how that happens.
And that's something that you also talk about in this episode, if I'm correct, about the circumstances leading up into what might have caused Amy to make those mistakes? We
talk a little bit about that in episodes 3 and episodes 4. The circumstances in Amy's life that drove her to almost want to be a pleaser. Her parents' marriage was falling apart, and she just wanted she wasn't dumb, we talk about that, but just naively thought that she could make things better for her parents by going along with the stranger to do what she thought was buy a present for her mom. Of course, we found out that was all a ruse to get her into a car.
And then here we are now 30 years later, still wondering who was responsible for the death of Amy Mihaljevic. And it's still being investigated, and as we said previously, if you listen to the earlier episodes, they think that they might be closer than ever?
Closer than ever to a killer, in part because of DNA evidence, but also the hope that conversations like this, podcasts like this, the news coverage, the FBI even put up another billboard this year, they've done this many times over the years, that by not letting this story go, by keeping it in the public's mind, that somebody may come forward with information. There are a lot of very distinctive features to this story that if you were a part of it somehow, you might be able to provide that crucial piece of evidence.
All right, the Amy Should Be 40 podcast is available, all 5 parts of it. That's on any platform where you get your podcasts.
Correct.
Apple, Google Play, Podbean, Stitcher.
Right, and it's a great podcast to binge if you are driving anywhere for Thanksgiving, flying anywhere for Thanksgiving. Right. You want to get away from those relatives that I can't say this may not provide some anxiety to listen to this story. It's difficult, and I want to warn listeners that it is not easy to hear. It is very difficult subject matter, but if you are into true crime, you are into podcasts, if you think you can help, it may be something to listen to as you make your way this holiday season.
And you can find links to that in the story on WKYC.com. We've dropped that link in the comments for you, so you can go directly there. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Taking a look at this weekend, tonight is one of the biggest nights out, Thanksgiving Eve, as people come in from out of town for the holidays. People are going out. People are celebrating those people coming in from out of town for the holidays. And the message we want to send here is do not drink and drive. We have a link on WKYC.com where you can actually get a promo code if you live in Summit County for a free ride tonight through Saturday. The Summit County Prosecutor's Office has sponsored this campaign. It's an Arrive Alive campaign. So if you're in Summit County, you know, that's Akron, Richfield, Hudson, Twinsburg, and so on, you can get a Lyft ride for free, up to a $20 value. And you can also get a City Yellow Cab ride for free in Summit County, up to a $65 value. In Lyft, you can just use a promo code in the app, and that promo code is SPCOTHANK19. It is the first 300 people to use that code who can take advantage of it, just so you know, so be aware of that. So if that code doesn't end up working for you, you can call City Yellow Cab at 330-253-3141, and you can get that ride for up to $65. Both of these promotions start tonight at 6 p.m. and run through Saturday morning at 6 a.m. So that's Wednesday, November 27th through Saturday, November 30th at 6 a.m. Okay. Before we go here, I also want to say a big congratulations to our anchor, Sarah Shookman, and her husband, Angelo. Sarah and Angelo announced that they are expecting a child in May. Congratulations to them. It was such a fun feeling around the newsroom when everybody was sharing that excitement today. So congratulations to Sarah and her husband, Angelo. Thank you for joining us here on 3 News Now. If you haven't already, make sure you like our Facebook page and follow the page so that you get notifications when we post these videos and anytime we post any of our great content for you. And also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/user/WKYCTV. And while you're there, make sure you click the bell so that you get notifications every single time we go live, so that you never miss an episode of 3 News Now and any of the other great content that we put out for you on our YouTube page. Everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'll see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. I'm Stephanie Haney.